Obviously, the main criteria of narcissistic personality disorder are the ones that can be found in the DSM-5. Grandiosity, entitlement, low empathy, arrogance, exploitative behavior. But there are other psychological habits associated with narcissism that didn't necessarily make its way into the criteria. These are things that when I start to notice in someone, I don't necessarily assume they're a narcissist, but I do start to wonder if maybe they would be high in narcissistic traits if they were to be assessed. I think you'll see a lot of these are quite niche, but once you hear them, they're going to make a lot of sense to you. So if you've ever known someone who seemed to be high in narcissistic traits, let me know if these feel relevant. Okay, number one psychological habit that makes me wonder if someone might be narcissistic is pretty constant contempt. When you hear the inner monologue of someone with NPD, there's a very clear theme that emerges. They feel very disgusted with themselves, and they're also very disgusted with other people. For those with vulnerable narcissism, the self-disgust might be quite close to the surface, where they're constantly sort of verbally battering themselves on the inside, whereas someone with grandiose narcissism, the self-disgust is often so deep within them, so deep under defense mechanisms, that the disgust towards themselves often gets projected onto other people. Like, listen to this video by the nameless narcissist who's diagnosed with NPD, giving us sort of an inside view into his inner monologue.
Honestly, I feel bad for all these people. They aren't the most attractive person at the park. I am. I swear to God, people only go to parks so that they can tell other people that taking a walk will solve all their problems. Being alone with my thoughts for a second seems relaxing. Oh, never mind, it was not. And then, when I'm rich and famous, I'll get on Jimmy Fallon. That will show all of them. What if everybody at the park thinks I'm weird because I'm here alone, without, like, a girlfriend or a family? Judgmental pricks. Don't they know I'm better than them? Hey, stop judging me. Yeah, that's right, walk away. Nope. Still empty inside. Hello, geese. I also know what it's like to be hated and misunderstood. And then he said, even the geese can't stand me. I've seen, like, way better parks. Didn't they know I was coming? I wonder what's written on this bench over here. Oh, wait, it's not my name. I don't care. I'm bored. I should text my ex. All right, I'm going home. I saw somebody with better hair, and I have to go and figure out ways that I'm actually better than him.
I don't know about you, but when I heard this, I was just struck by how exhausting it must be to constantly have this disdain for himself or other people running through his inner monologue at all times. So whenever I notice that someone is expressing a lot of contempt for other people, someone who seems sort of chronically disgusted with everyone, I tend to wonder about that. Because the core of narcissism is essentially self-loathing, and specifically self-loathing that gets projected onto other people. And as you can imagine, this is really not good if you're in some sort of relationship with someone who's narcissistic, because contempt is the #1 relationship killer. According to John Gottman's research, contempt is the worst of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse to have in a romantic relationship. It is the fastest predictor of divorce. But I think in all kinds of relationships, if you feel contempt for the other person that you supposedly care about, things are going to get ugly pretty soon. Number 2, they're quick to dehumanize people. One of the most central aspects of a narcissistic person's worldview is that they see other people as objects or a means to an end, not necessarily as true human beings. Like, check out this recent study which found that people who objectify others tend to have dark personalities characterized by entitlement and exploitativeness, such as narcissism. And even when a narcissist idealizes someone, they're still sort of projecting their own ideal God self onto that other person. They're not actually seeing that person for who they truly are and appreciating them for all their humanness, including their flaws. To me, this is one of the scariest things about the dark tetrad personalities, because objectification is inherently dehumanizing. Once you start to dehumanize a person, you can justify the worst crimes against humanity. Seeing someone's humanity is what helps you identify with them and therefore empathize with them. I mean, think about it. When you identify with someone, you're saying, oh, I kind of see where this person's coming from. That is what opens the door towards empathy. When we go to the zoo and we look at chimpanzees, for example, it can feel kind of uncanny because we see a little bit of humanness in them because they're so closely related to us. But the more different we feel from a creature, a rhinoceros, a bug, maybe even an inanimate object like a rock, the less we see our humanness in them, and therefore the less bad we feel about the prospect of harming them. Like, I don't feel bad if I accidentally step on a bug, but I would of course feel terrible if I crushed a human being with my giant foot or something. Our ability to see other people as humans is what helps us empathize with them. And of course, the ability to empathize with non-human creatures is also important, but that's kind of a discussion for another day. But this is why I really pay attention to people who dehumanize not only individuals, but also groups of people. Quite often, those who dehumanize certain races, genders, ethnicities, other groups of people, they're quite prone to narcissism. This is not something I take lightly. The moment someone indicates to me that they don't see the humanity in another person, that scares the fuck out of me. So number 3 habit that makes me wonder if someone might be narcissistic is they frequently make people feel either insufficient or devalued in some way. Like, check out this role play between a world-renowned psychoanalytic therapist and a client pretending to be someone with NPD.
I've noticed for a while now that as just happened when I was trying to offer an idea which may have been incorrect or not been valid. Over the months, I think we've been meeting about 3 months now, and over that time, it's kind of frequent that when I suggest something, you have a reaction of sort of rolling your eyes or looking like what I'm saying is kind of stupid or not worth thinking about. I just want to propose that if I'm at all correct in my observation, that there's something, like I said, a little dismissive and rejecting, almost condescending about
Me? Condescending? Sorry, you're the most condescending person I've ever met. I didn't want to say anything because this is my therapy, not yours. I didn't want to waste time on you, but since you brought it up, you're the most condescending person I've ever met. It has to be said. And speaking of which, I know that therapists get therapy. Have you thought about getting therapy yourself, or?
Well, I didn't know you.
See, the way you're speaking, you're trying to just say what you want to say.
Oh,
Yeah. What is it you want to say? I didn't roll my eyes. Maybe I'm a little bit impatient, but you would be if you were in my position.
I'd like to hear more about that. So why don't we kind of shift away from what we were talking about? Fill me in. I mean, let me know.
I didn't come to therapy to get this level of disapproval, to be honest with you. So I thought therapy is about helping me. Yeah. So
for 3 months.
All I've been getting is this. Now you came out and say it, which I appreciate, but
in an unspoken way, or with it being unspoken, you've been experiencing disapproval here.
yeah,
That
maybe that's a pattern. Maybe that's how therapy is. I don't know.
but I officially am supposed to be helping, but
Yeah.
actually I'm judging, and you said condescending. Yeah. I'm open to hearing more about that. I just
Thank you. We should address it.
Okay.
Before therapy can begin, this is what we should focus on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've opened up something very important, and
Thank you.
I didn't know it was there.
So the therapist points out the client's dismissive, rejecting attitude and body language, and the client in response unleashes how unhappy they've been with the therapist, how they don't see them as competent as their job, how they hold them in negative regard, how they haven't seen any progress. I do remember one time during my clinical training, I went to supervision to talk about a particular client who was making me feel this way, and my supervisor at the time pointed out to me that there were some narcissistic tendencies going on. In therapy with a narcissist, this is often called projective identification. The narcissist, like I said, deep down feels self-loathing, disgust for themselves. So what they often do to deal with that is they project that onto the other person. And so instead of them being aware that that's how they feel, they make the other person feel that way. They make the other person feel like they are worthless. And in the context of therapy, this is something that therapists really pay attention to. When they start to feel insufficient or devalued in some way, it's a really big sign like, hey, this client, that's how they feel actually. That's why they're making me feel that way. And it's also a very big red flag of narcissism. So this is really important to pay attention to in therapy, but it's also something that I really pay attention to in real life. Because think about it, when you devalue someone, you're basically saying, I now see you as worthless because you have a flaw. You're not as perfect as I previously thought you were or hoped you might be. A healthy individual, when they learn that someone in their life has a human flaw, is able to acknowledge that without immediately resorting to, therefore they are all bad. They can recognize, hey, we're all imperfect humans, but they have other qualities that I admire. With narcissists, that's not really the case. They struggle to reconcile that two things can be true at once, that a person can be part good and part bad. And the other side of this coin, the flip side of devaluation, is idealization, which is why it makes me really nervous when someone idealizes me, even like a subscriber, because I've had experiences before where someone was seemingly idealizing me, and all it took was one tiny thing that they didn't like to suddenly completely flip on me. So whenever I hear someone start to completely devalue a person because that person let them down in some small way, I start to perk my ears for possible signs of narcissism. Sign number 4. In that previous roleplay that I showed you, there was another phenomenon caught on camera, and that is projection.
You're the most condescending person I've ever met.
Did you catch that? The therapist was pointing out to the client, hey, I noticed that your body language frequently suggests condescension. And the client threw it back on them. No, actually, you're the condescending one. No one is as condescending as you are. And then the conversation goes into the therapist's flaws, not the thing that the therapist just brought up in order to help them. Projection has long been associated with narcissism. It's one of the core defense mechanisms of a narcissistic personality. Even when you think about like the core criteria of narcissism, one of the symptoms to get diagnosed is that either they have a lot of envy or they think that other people envy them when it's not the case. This is such an interesting symptom because if you think about it, it's a projection of their own envy. They are very envious of other people, but instead of owning that, they say, actually, everyone else is envious of me. Many people, not necessarily narcissistic people, experience self-loathing, especially from time to time. Quite often, what differentiates someone who struggles with self-loathing from someone narcissistic is that the narcissistic person will hot potato their self-loathing onto someone else. They will project it onto them. So they will often accuse other people of having ill intentions, even when it's not the case, because deep down, that's kind of how they're feeling about others. And it can be exhausting to be around such a person because eventually you get kind of tired of absorbing all these random accusations that have nothing to do with you. Number 5, their desires are extrinsically motivated, not intrinsically motivated. When it comes to narcissism, almost everything is about external validation. Will this get me love? Will this get me acceptance from other people? Will this get me to belong with a group? Will this get me admiration? Of course, these things are important to everyone because we are very social creatures. But for most people, there's also an internal reason why you do things, like genuine passion for something, or because you intrinsically find something really enjoyable, or because it's aligned with your values. Narcissists struggle with that. Don't get me wrong, they do have things that they intrinsically enjoy, but they value validation so much more that it overshadows any intrinsic motivations they might have. And did you know that the DSM has actually proposed a new set of criteria for narcissistic personality disorder? And what do you know? Number 2 is self-direction, goal setting based on gaining approval from others. Exactly the thing I'm talking about. So for example, when choosing a partner, you're not going to hear them talking about like genuine attraction for that person, genuine desire for them, a genuine connection with them. Rather, you'll hear them talking more about the optics of it, whether that person makes them look good to others because that person is either attractive or high status or whatever it is. This is something that I see a lot with like manosphere creators. It seems like a lot of these men are very concerned with how their choice of partner or partners makes them look to other men. Why is that? Because in their mind, men are higher on the hierarchy than women. So they don't value the opinion of women, they value the opinion of other men. And they're going to make choices even in their dating life, not necessarily based on what is the best fit for them intrinsically, but based on what other men think is cool. Another example is like AI authors. I use quotation marks because if you're using AI to write your book, you're not an author. I genuinely don't understand what is the point, because for me, the act of writing is the point. I literally feel like pressure building when I have something inside me that I want to get out on paper. It's literally like a kettle where the pressure is increasing until it just kind of pours out of me. If someone just cares about the final product of like, okay, I want to have a book, they don't care about the intrinsic rewards they get from the actual act of it. They just care about the external validation they think they'll get as an author. And number 6, ugly falling outs with many people and groups across time. A general difficulty maintaining romantic relationships, friendships, work relationships, and even family relationships. This one I take kind of as a warning sign of personality disorders in general, because they're what's called egocentric, meaning the other person doesn't think it's a problem. They don't think their personality symptoms are a problem. They think everyone else is to blame. I gotta be clear here, I'm not talking about people who are lonely and isolated and have maybe never had those relationships in the first place, or people who just sort of struggle to keep in touch with others. That's usually a separate thing, more about a lack of relationship skills than it is about personality traits. I'm also not talking about someone who's getting scapegoated in a system, who maybe also is reenacting that pattern in other systems because of the trauma. I'm talking here about people who are highly volatile, high conflict, always getting into fights with people across different contexts: school, work, home, friend group, neighborhood. They're always in some sort of ugly conflict with someone. They cycle through devaluing nearly everyone in their life at some point, and maybe at one point they have like a group rallying behind them, but eventually that group also cuts ties with them once they start to lash out at someone in that group as well. If they move around, they tend to burn bridges everywhere. It seems like the drama kind of follows them everywhere they go. They tend to end up in multiple marriages that end horribly, dozens of relationships that have ugly breakups. When I notice that about someone, I start to pay very close attention to their personality traits. And quite often, the personality traits that I observe are narcissistic. So in conclusion, the following are 6 psychological habits that are frequently associated with narcissism. Not the core criteria, but still closely related. Number 1, constant contempt. Number 2, they're very quick to dehumanize people. Number 3, they frequently devalue people. Number 4, they frequently project onto other people. Number 5, they do things for almost entirely extrinsic reasons. And number 6, they have a pattern of very high conflict relationships that end in ugly ways. So what do you think? Does this track with the people you've known who seemed high in narcissistic traits? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you for watching.